Hey, what's up guys, it's Jonathan here. The president of the St. Louis Fed and an FOMC voting member, James Bullard, was just interviewed on CNBC Monday morning. He said some important things in that video that I think every investor should be aware of. So let's quickly smash the like button and let's get right to it. In this interview, Bullard was asked about the previous statement he made on Friday, saying that he would like to see 100 basis points rise in the federal funds rate by July 1st. And for those of you who don't know what basis points are, they're basically 1/100%. So 100 basis points would equal out to be 1%. And the reason that he used to defend his position on this, he talked about how the past 4 CPI prints that we've gotten in October, November, December, and January have all shown that inflation is quote-unquote broadening and possibly accelerating. Just recently, I saw this news release from the Consumer Sentiment Index that we got on Friday. And in that news release, the director of the survey stated, while supply chains and essential workers have sparked the initial increases in prices and wages, a wage price spiral that has subsequently developed is no longer tied to those precipitating conditions. It seems like the position of this University of Michigan economist is that even though it was the supply chains and the essential workers that did start this inflation that we are seeing, it has now evolved to becoming a wage price spiral, which is a very bad situation to be in, because that basically means as the price of goods go up, then that means that the employers start to ask for more money so they could pay for their goods, which only ends up causing the price of goods to go up even more. And it's just this repeated cycle that we really don't want to get into. Bullard goes on to state as well that he's not the only voting member of the FOMC, and that there's other members on the board that will play into this decision as well on how many rate hikes we'll see in the near future. And he also stated that it is up to the Fed Chair Jerome Powell on how those rate hikes will be staggered over time. Bullard also went on to state that the FOMC should consider front-loading the rate hikes, are basically thus having the bigger rate hikes more immediately to combat the most recent 7.5% CPI print that we got last week. Between now and July 1st, where Bullard would like to see this 100 basis points increase, there are 3 scheduled FOMC meetings. There's one that ends on March 16th, there's another one that ends on May 4th, and there's another one that ends on June 16th. By looking at Bullard's statements, we could kind of make the assumption that he's probably looking at something of maybe in the first meeting having a 50 basis point increase, having 2 subsequent quarter point increases in the May and June meetings. This is also what the market is assuming is going to happen as well, given the situation about a 61% probability of happening. But some of the more dovish members of the FOMC, like San Francisco Federal President Mary Daly, fears that a 50 basis point increase in March would shock the market. But currently as it stands, that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case. It seems to be that most market participants are assuming that we will see a 50-point basis increase. Then Bullard went on to state in this interview that the Federal Reserve must act based off of the data that they have. And again, he reiterated the past 4 CPI prints that we had and how they've progressively gotten worse and worse over time. And as we know, this has led not only Bullard, but also other members of the FOMC to believe that this inflation problem that we're having is not going to be transitory, or it's not going to naturally mitigate itself, as they once believed last year. But historically, Bullard has been one of the more hawkish members of the FOMC, so it's no surprise that we are hearing this dialogue from him. Bullard was also asked about some of the sharp moves we've seen in the 2-year Treasury yield. And Bullard's response to this is that we are seeing these sharp moves because the market is expecting the Federal Reserve to stick with their promise of their inflation target of 2% over time. And his position on it is that the Federal Reserve must execute on these expectations in order to bring inflation down to that 2% and to solidify some of the moves that we have seen in Treasury yields recently. He did end the means by saying that there needs to be stronger action in terms of the rate hikes that we see, especially in the near future, but it should be done in such a way where it doesn't shock the market. From this interview, you could pretty much take away that his viewpoint is probably what I said earlier about the 50-point increase in the March FOMC meeting, then the 0.25% increase in the May and June meetings. So some important events that are going on this week in terms of inflation. We have the Producer Price Index, or the PPI, coming out on Thursday morning. And what the PPI calculates, it calculates the inflation of the prices that producers are paying for supplies. CPI calculates what the consumer is paying the producer for their good or service, but the producer price index calculates what the producer is paying for the raw materials to make whatever good that they're supplying. It is something good to look out for, especially in times like this. Then on Wednesday, you're supposed to get the January FOMC meeting minutes, and that'll give us a better look onto where the Fed's mind is in terms of this market. If you remember from last month, when the December CPI minute meetings came out, it actually took a pretty big hit on the markets. So this is, again, another important thing to watch out for in this market. On Thursday and Friday, there are various FOMC members set to speak on different forums on Thursday and Friday. And we may see one of them say something that is very important for the market in the long run. Keep your eyes open for anything that you hear about those meetings, because most likely there won't be anything big that comes from them, but it never hurts to look into it. So that's basically all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It greatly helps out the channel. Also, if you like this video, you'll probably like some of the other videos that I post as well. I talk about all things investing and personal finance. Consider hitting the subscribe button and notification bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. Also, check me out on all my social medias. I try to post every other day or so. So if you're interested, check it out. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.